I found a GPS tracker under my truck while changing oil. Professional installation. Still warm, meaning someone had just put it there? At 70 years old, why would anyone need to track me to find the truth? I mailed that tracker to Canada. I didn't tell anyone. I just waited, watched, listened. 12 hours later, my son's phone started ringing nonstop. His face went white, and that's when I knew who'd put it there. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment below. Where are you watching this from? And what time is it there right now? I want to know how far this story is reaching. The Saturday morning oil change was a ritual I'd kept for 40 years. Same time, same routine. Slide the creeper under the F-150 drain. The old oil replaced the filter, fill it back up. My joints complained more than they used to, but I could still do the work myself? Always had, always would. That's when my hand hit something that shouldn't have been there. I stopped. Felt around the undercarriage again. This time paying attention. My fingers found metal smooth and foreign, not part of the truck. I grabbed the flashlight from my toolbox and rolled back under. The beam caught it immediately. A black box about the size of a deck of cards magnetically attached to the frame. A tiny LED blinked red in the darkness. Professional installation, industrial-grade magnet. This wasn't some cheap toy from an electronics store. I'd been a mechanical engineer for 4 decades before I retired. I knew equipment. This was expensive. $300, maybe $400. And it was still warm to the touch. Not warm from the Montana sun. It was barely 60 degrees out here in October. Warm from recent use. Someone had installed this thing recently. Very recently. I didn't rip it off. That would have been stupid. Instead, I took photos from every angle with my phone. Close-ups of the serial number stamped on the side. Wide shots showing exactly where it was mounted. I documented everything the way I'd been trained to document mechanical failures back in my engineering days. Then I grabbed a paper towel from the workbench, carefully wiped my prints off the device, and removed it. The magnet released with a soft click. I wrapped it in a Ziploc bag and carried it inside, leaving the oil change half finished. At my kitchen table, I stared at the thing through the plastic. GPS tracker had to be. But who would put a tracker on a 70-year-old man's truck? I mentally ran through the list. Only 3 people had been in my garage this past week. Jim, my neighbor, 2 plots down, 75 years old, barely knew how to use his flip phone. No way Jim installed something like this. The propane delivery guy who'd filled my tank on Monday. But he was a stranger. Didn't know me. Had no reason to track some random customer. And Dylan, my son, who'd stopped by Tuesday afternoon, supposedly to check on the horses. I sat back in my chair thinking. Dylan had spent 15 minutes in the garage alone. Said he was checking the tire pressure on my truck, being helpful, making sure the old man's vehicle was safe. Except Dylan had never cared about those horses. Not once in 35 years, and checking tire pressure doesn't take 15 minutes. My engineer's mind started putting pieces together. The warmth of the device meant it was active transmitting. Someone was watching where I went. Someone who needed professional equipment to do it. I looked at my phone at Dylan's number in my contacts. My thumb hovered over it. No, I'd learned something in 40 years of solving mechanical problems. Never jump to conclusions without data. Test your hypothesis first. Observe the system. See what breaks when you apply pressure. I opened the drawer in my kitchen desk and dropped the Ziploc bag inside. The truck would stay in the garage. I wouldn't drive anywhere, and I'd wait to see who asked questions. If someone was tracking me, they were about to get very confused about why I'd suddenly stopped moving. I closed the drawer and looked out the window at my quiet ranch. 3 people had keys to my garage. Only one of them knew trucks well enough to install a tracker properly, my son. I didn't call Dylan, didn't confront him. Didn't call Dylan. I did what I'd learned in 40 years of engineering. Test the hypothesis before drawing conclusions. Sunday morning came quiet. I fed the horses, mended fence, cleaned the barn. Normal weekend work. The F-150 sat in the garage untouched. The tracker sat in my desk drawer silent. My phone never rang. Monday, I stayed close to the house, repaired the porch railing, organized the tool shed made chili that would last the week. Still no reason to drive. The truck stayed put. At 2 in the afternoon, my phone buzzed. Dylan. "Hey, Dad, just checking in." His voice had that casual tone people use when they're trying too hard to sound casual. "I'm fine," I said. "Woo, no reason. Haven't heard from you. Your truck running okay?" There it was. "Not how are you feeling?" He asked about the truck. "Actually, I'm having transmission trouble," I said. "Keeping it in the garage for now." His voice shifted, got tighter. "What's wrong exactly? Where are you taking it? How long will it take?" 3 questions in 5 seconds. That wasn't concern. That was panic barely controlled. Just some slipping between gears. Probably needs new fluid. I'll get to it when I get to it. "But why are you asking so many questions about my truck?" Silence on his end. "Then I just want to make sure you're safe. At your age, car trouble can be dangerous." I'm 70. "Dylan not dead." I hung up. Dylan didn't call to check on me. He called to check on the truck, which meant he was watching it. Tuesday morning, I was pulling weeds when the phone rang again. "Dad." "Hey." Dylan sounded breathless. "I was thinking maybe I could visit this weekend." "Sure," I said, "but the truck's still not fixed." "You're sure it's just the transmission?" His voice went up half an octave. "Nothing else wrong with the truck. I stopped pulling weeds." That was too specific. "What else would be wrong with it?" He stammered. "I don't know. Just making sure. Old vehicles can have multiple problems. It's fine, Dylan. Just the transmission." After I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table. 2 calls in 3 days. Dylan normally called once a month, if that, and both times he'd asked about the truck. Not about me, not about the ranch, the truck. I opened the desk drawer and looked at the Ziploc bag. The tracker's LED still blinked, read patient and persistent. My engineer's brain started connecting dots. 6 months ago, Dylan had helped me set up Wi-Fi, insisted on doing it himself. 3 months ago, he'd fixed my laptop when it was running slow. Spent an hour alone with it. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was a pattern. Dylan hadn't been helping me. He'd been preparing for what I didn't know yet. But the tracker wasn't about keeping me safe. If it were, he wouldn't be panicking when I stayed home. This was about control, about knowing where I was at all times. Tuesday night, I sat in the dark and thought about my son. About the boy who'd learned to change oil beside me in this garage, who'd grown into a man I apparently didn't know anymore. If Dylan was this desperate to track my movements, there had to be a reason, something that made him willing to lie to his own father. I needed to know how far he'd go. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found a name I hadn't called in years. Ray Fletcher, long-haul trucker old friend, and a man who asked no questions. Time to give Dylan something to really worry about. Ray Fletcher answered on the second ring. His voice was rough from 35 years of diesel fumes and truck stop coffee. "Frank, you know what time it is?" 6:00 a.m. and I need a favor. "Must be important if you're calling this early." "Can you get something to Winnipeg for me?" Silence, then a low chuckle. "What kind of something?" "The kind you don't ask about." 20 minutes later, I met Rye at the I-90 truck stop just outside Boceasaman. The Montana morning was cold fog, still clinging to the asphalt. His rig sat idling, engine rumbling like distant thunder. I handed him a small box, the tracker wrapped in bubble wrap and sealed with tape. No return address, no labels. "What's in it?" Ray asked, turning it over in his thick hands. "Nothing dangerous, nothing illegal. Just needs to get to Winnipeg. Don't open it. Don't let Border Patrol scan it, if you can help it." Ray looked at me for a long moment. We'd known each other 20 years. fixed each other's vehicles, shared beers at the 4th of July barbecue, buried our wives within 2 years of each other. He knew I wouldn't ask unless it mattered. You're a weird old man, Morrison. I know. This gonna come back on me? No. He nodded, tucked the box behind his seat. I'll text when I cross the border. His truck pulled away, north red tail lights disappearing into the fog. I watched until I couldn't see them anymore, then drove home. The waiting was the hard part. I fed the horses, checked the fence line, made myself a sandwich. I didn't eat, kept my phone in my pocket. Volume turned all the way up. 200 p.m., nothing. 5:00 p.m., still nothing. At 7:00 my phone buzzed. Text from Ray. Crossbar package delivered to your friend. I typed back, thanks, I owe you. 8:00 p.m. I was washing dinner dishes when my phone rang. Dylan, hey dad, how's it going? Too cheerful, forced. Making dinner, I said. You just checking in? You home? Where else would I be? Right. Truck's still broken, still working on it. So you're at the ranch, not driving anywhere. I set down the dish towel slowly. Dylan, what's this about nothing? Just making sure you're okay. His voice was tight, stretched thin like wire about to snap. 9:00 p.m. The phone rang again. Dad, where are you? Not a greeting, a demand. Raw panic. I'm at home, where I've been all day. Why are you yelling your truck? I mean, are you sure you're at the ranch? Son, are you drunk? In the background, Brittany's voice cut through sharp as glass. Give me the phone. No, let me. Dylan muffled, arguing with her. Dylan? What the hell is going on? His voice dropped to almost a whisper. Dad, we need to talk in person. Tomorrow morning, 9:00 a.m. It's important. Really important. Don't go anywhere tonight. Okay, just stay home. I'm 70 years old. Where would I go? After I hung up, I sat in the dark kitchen for a long time. Dylan hadn't asked if I was okay. He'd asked where I was, which meant he had the tracking app on his phone right now watching, seeing his father's truck make an impossible journey 1,500 miles north across the Canadian border. My son had been watching my every move, and now that he'd lost me, he was terrified. Good. Let him sweat. Tomorrow I'd find out what else he'd been doing. That night I couldn't sleep. Something Dylan said kept bothering me. Are you sure you're at the ranch? How would he know if I wasn't? The tracker was in Canada unless there was another way he'd been watching me. At 1:00 a.m. I walked to my office. The laptop sat on my desk. Dylan had helped me set up Wi-Fi 6 months ago, insisted on doing it himself, and he'd fixed it 3 times when it ran slow. I opened Task Manager. Dylan had taught me that once ironically. I scanned the running processes, most I recognized, but one stood out. Remote Access Service .exe. I stared at it for a full minute. I almost Googled it on the laptop, then stopped. If someone was watching my screen, they'd know I'd found it. I pulled out my phone and searched there. The results made my hands shake. Remote desktop software allows someone to view your screen access files, control your computer from anywhere. I checked when it was installed 6 months ago, the exact day Dylan had helped with Wi-Fi. I dug deeper into the file access logs. Recent files accessed remotely. Bank statements, legal documents, emails, property deed, all accessed when I wasn't home. Someone had been reading everything, my accounts, my passwords, my entire financial life. I wanted to uninstall it immediately, but if Dylan was watching, he'd know I'd discovered it. Better to leave it. Let him think he still had access. I closed the laptop carefully and sat in the dark. Tracker plus spyware, location, and finances. Why would my son need both at 2 a.m.? I walked to Jim's house and knocked quietly. He answered in his bathrobe, squinting. Frank, what's wrong? Can I use your computer? Mine's acting up at 2 now in the morning. Please, Jim. He stepped aside without another word. Good neighbors don't ask questions they don't want answered. I sat at his old desktop and started searching. Remote access software illegal. Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Federal crime up to 10 years in prison. Then I searched for the tracker's model number. From my photos found the manufacturer's website, read the product description. My blood went cold. Advanced Vehicle Control System, Remote Engine Shutoff. Brake Control Full ECU Integration, Remote Engine Shutoff, not just tracking control. I searched Remote Engine Shutoff while driving and found videos. One headline, Kill Switch Devices, the New Murder Weapon. I clicked play, a car driving highway speed 65 miles. Then suddenly, engine cut brakes locked. The car spun out of control and slammed into the guardrail. Test track. Professional driver's safety equipment. But the message was clear. On a real highway, the driver wouldn't survive. I sat back numb. Dylan hadn't just been watching me. He'd installed a weapon on my truck. He could kill me with a button press on his phone while I was driving to town on the highway anywhere. I thanked Jim and walked home through the cold Montana darkness. My son had the ability to murder me remotely. One button, one moment, dead. The question wasn't if anymore. The question was why. At 6:00 a.m. Thursday, I made 2 calls. First to Robert Mitchell, who'd handled my wife's will 10 years ago. Second to Chuck Morrison at the auto shop. By noon, I'd know if I was paranoid or if my son was really trying to kill me. Mitchell's office was downtown 3rd floor of an old brick building. I arrived at 9:00 with a USB drive full of screenshots from Jim's computer photos of the tracker evidence of the spyware. Frank Mitchell stood from his desk, concern already on his face. "What's wrong?" I handed him the USB drive. He plugged it in, clicked through the files. His expression darkened with each image. "This is surveillance without consent, potentially a felony?" "There's more," I said. "I think someone tried to file power of attorney under my name." Mitchell's fingers went still on the keyboard. "You think or you know? I need you to check." He turned to his computer-accessed Montana state records. 5 minutes of typing. Then he looked up at me. "Frank, sit down." I was already sitting. "2 weeks ago, someone submitted a durable power of attorney with your signature." The notary office flagged it. The ID looked suspicious. "I tried calling you, but I was at the fishing cabin. No cell service for 4 days." He nodded, turned his screen toward me. The signature looked 95% real, almost perfect. If I hadn't caught it, Dylan would have legal control over everything. Your ranch, your pension, your medical decisions, everything. How would he get my signature? The spyware. He could scan old documents, manipulate images. Mitchell paused. "Frank? He can try again, and next time he'll be more careful." He pulled another file from his drawer. 3 days ago, someone used your property as collateral for a loan." The room tilted slightly. "That's impossible." "The ranch has been paid off for 12 years. I know." "The title company flagged it and called me. Someone forged your signature on a loan application. $340,000. The number hit me like a fist. Who would lend that much? It's not a legitimate lender. It's a loan shark operation disguised as an investment firm. High interest, violent collection methods. When people don't pay, he didn't finish. Dylan owes them." Mitchell nodded, "A lot. And he used your ranch without your knowledge. If he'd gotten power of attorney first, it would have been legal." At 11, I drove to Chuck's auto shop with the tracker photos. The garage smelled like oil and burnt rubber. Chuck took one look at the pictures and his face went hard. "Where'd you find this under my F-150? He led me to his office, typed the model number into his computer. "Frank, this isn't just GPS. This is a kill switch device," he explained. "Connects to the engine control unit. Can remotely cut fuel, disable the engine, lock the brakes." He pulled up a video. A car driving 60 miles. Then suddenly, engine-dead brakes locked the car spinning out of control. Highway speed. you die. Can you trace who bought it? Number dark web, untraceable. But whoever installed it had physical access to your truck and knew what they were doing. He looked at me seriously. Frank, this is attempted murder. You need to call the police. I drove home slowly, checking every car in my mirrors. Dylan had 340,000 reasons to kill me. He had the tools to do it. And according to Mitchell, the loan sharks would come calling in 2 weeks. That was 12 days ago. I had 48 hours left. I didn't sleep Thursday night either. Instead, I sat with a cup of cold coffee and a phone number I hadn't called in 15 years. Mike Patterson, retired detective, the only man I trusted to dig into my son's life without judgment. At 2 a.m., I opened my notebook and wrote out a timeline. 6 months ago, spyware installed. 2 weeks ago, power of attorney attempt. 1 week ago, tracker installed. 3 days ago, loan application. The pattern was clear. Escalating preparation. I picked up the phone and dialed. Mike answered on the third ring, his voice thick with sleep. This better be good. It's 2:00 in the morning. Mike, it's Frank Morrison. Silence. Then his voice cleared. Frank, what's wrong? I need you to look into someone. My son. A long pause. Mike knew I wouldn't ask unless it was desperate. What do you need? Everything. His finances. Who he owes. What he's been doing by tomorrow. That's a tall order. I'll pay triple your rate. Frank, I don't need your money. If you're calling about your kid at 2:00 a.m., it's bad enough. Give me 4 hours. At 6, my phone rang. Frank, sit down. I was already sitting. Your son is drowning. Borrowed $340,000 from a firm called Apex Investment Solutions. The loan sharks Mitchell mentioned worse. They're under FBI investigation money laundering front. When people don't pay, they disappear. My blood went cold. How much time does he have? They gave him 2 weeks. That was 12 days ago. In 2 days, they'll come to collect. They'll take the ranch with or without you on it. Mike paused. Frank, your son sold you to dangerous people. Why would he borrow that much? Mike hesitated. Gambling online, poker, crypto trading lost everything. Plus, Brittany's medical bills elective surgery insurance wouldn't cover. They're drowning. Instead of asking me for help, they decided to take it. Another paused. Frank, there's more. According to my source, inside Apex, they sent someone to evaluate the collateral yesterday. Someone's been watching your ranch, taking photos, making sure it's worth $340,000. I looked out the window. The ranch sat dark and quiet. Frank, you need protection. These people don't negotiate. What do they usually do? Mike's voice went flat. They make the collateral available by removing obstacles. I'm the obstacle. Yes. In 2 days, if Dylan doesn't pay, they'll come for you. And they won't just ask you to sign papers. What should I do? Call the FBI, call the local sheriff, get protection, or I could give them what they want. You mean Dylan. With evidence, with a confession, with everything? Frank, these people want the ranch, but if Dylan's in FBI custody, the collateral becomes invalid. The loan fraud gets exposed. Apex gets investigated. They lose everything. You're talking about setting up your own son. I'm talking about stopping him before he kills me. Mike gave me 2 phone numbers, one for the FBI, one for a safe house if I needed to run. I wrote them down, thanked him, and hung up. Then I stared at those numbers for a long time. By sunrise, I'd made my decision. I wasn't running. I was fighting. Friday morning, I went shopping, not for groceries, not for feed, not for anything a man my age should be buying. At 8:00 in the morning, I drove toward Billings with a single-purpose cameras, a recorder, and a cheap laptop no one but me could ever access. And before the sun went down, I needed to make a phone call that would change everything, one that might save my life or force the confrontation I'd been avoiding. Either way, by nightfall, there would be no turning back. At 8 sharp, I pulled onto the highway and headed east. I skipped Bozeman entirely. Small towns have fast-moving gossip, and I couldn't afford curious eyes. Billings offered anonymity. Best Buy had just opened when I walked in. A young clerk approached as I studied the security aisle. "Setting up a system, sir?" he asked. "Something like that?" I said, paying in cash for 4 Blink mini cameras and a no-frills laptop. No accounts, no cloud, nothing traceable. Back home, I installed the cameras over 3 slow, deliberate hours. The first went in the living room, hidden between Linda's old hardbacks. The second hid behind the kitchen wall clock's face. The third disappeared inside a wooden birdhouse overlooking the porch. The fourth I tucked behind a framed photo of Linda in my office. All 4 streamed only to the new laptop. The compromised one Dylan had touched stayed shut. When everything came online, I checked each angle, not a single blind spot. At 1:00 in the afternoon, I called Thomas Wee. "Thomas, if I record my son admitting what he's done, is that admissible? Montana is a one-party consent state," he said. "You need him to say 3 things. He installed the tracker. He knew what it could do, and he intended to use your property. That proves fraud, attempted homicide, and elder exploitation." I wrote the 3 points in my notebook, my hand unsteady. At 2, I called the number Mike Patterson gave me. FBI Billings Field Office. "This is Agent Martinez." "My name is Frank Morrison," I said. "My son is trying to kill me, and he's tied to Apex Investment Solutions." A pause. "Mr. Morrison, how do you know about Apex?" "Because they're holding a fraudulent loan in my name. My son used my ranch as collateral." "Can you come into the office?" she asked. "I can't," I said, "but you can come here. Tomorrow morning I'll have a recorded confession." "Can you place agents at my ranch at 10:00 a.m. Saturday?" "Sir, that isn't typically. He installed a kill switch on my truck. He forged legal documents. Apex comes for me in 2 days. You can be here tomorrow or arrive Sunday to collect my body." I hung up before she could answer. The phone rang instantly. Mr. Morrison Martinez said, "I need all the details you have." For 30 minutes, I gave her everything. The tracker, the spyware forged, signatures, the loan, the timeline. When I finished, she said, "I'll send 2 agents. They'll stay hidden. But if things turn dangerous, it won't." I said face to face, "He's still my son." At 4, I practiced my questions in the mirror, gentle at first, tightening steadily until the truth had nowhere left to hide. At 6, I called Dylan, 9:00 a.m. "Tomorrow," I said, "just you and me." His voice trembled. "About what, Dad?" "About what you've done." I hung up before he could protest. I didn't sleep that night. I watched the 4 camera feeds glowing on the laptop, the ranch silent around me. Tomorrow he would face what he'd become. And at 8:55 a.m., Saturday, when I heard his truck crunch on the gravel, I checked the cameras one last time. Agent Martinez and Agent Harper were already hidden in the kitchen. I steadied myself and walked toward the front door. It was time. Dylan knocked 3 times, soft, hesitant, like when he was a kid, and had broken something. Brittany stood beside him uninvited. I should have known she'd come. I opened the door. I said, "Just you." Brittany's chin lifted. "Family business. I should be here." I stepped aside. They sat on the sofa. I took the chair across from them. The cameras capturing every angle. "Coffee?" "No." Dylan's voice cracked. "Dad, what's this about? I found something under my truck." I let the words sit there. "GPS tracker. Professional installation. Someone who knows trucks." Complete silence. Dylan's face went white. Brittany's hand tightened on her purse. "You taught me to change oil when you were 16, Dylan. You've been under that F-150 before." Brittany started to speak. "Frank, why would Dylan $340,000? I said. "That's why." Dylan made a sound like all the air had left his lungs. "You owe money to Apex Investment Solutions. Dad, how did you? His voice broke. Brittany jabbed him hard with her elbow. I know everything I said. Spyware on my laptop, forged power of attorney, loan using my ranch, all of it. Dylan's face crumpled. Dad, they were going to kill us. 15% per month. We couldn't pay. Dylan, shut up, Brittany hissed. Let him talk, I said. The tracker was to keep you safe, Dylan said desperately. To know where you were safe. I leaned forward. Or to make sure I signed papers. He hesitated. Both, maybe. I was scared. You put a kill switch on my truck. Dylan went completely still. What it don't lie. Chuck Morrison identified it. Connects to the engine control unit. Can cut fuel lock. Brakes kill the engine at 70-mile buffer. I didn't know it could do that. Dylan's voice rose, panicked. Brittany said it was just GPS. Brittany stood up. We're leaving. Sit down or I call the sheriff right now. You can't prove anything. I held up my phone. Photos of the tracker screenshots of the spyware copies of the forged documents. I can prove everything. Dylan broke completely, started crying. Dad, please. We didn't want to hurt you. We needed the ranch temporarily. We'd pay you back after I was dead. No, it was sobbing now. I wasn't going to. I didn't. He didn't know, Brittany shouted. I bought it. It was my idea. She realized what she'd said. Her face went pale. So you're confessing, I said quietly. I know. I turned to Dylan. Did you install the tracker? He was crying too hard to speak at first. Yes. But I didn't think. Did you access my computer? Yes. Did you forge my signature? Brittany did it, but I knew about it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Dad. I looked at my son, and broken and crying on my sofa. I'm sorry too. Then I said, Agent Martinez, I think you've heard enough. Dylan's head snapped up. What? Martinez stepped out of the kitchen. Agent Harper behind her. They held up their badges. Dylan, Morrison, Brittany. Morrison, you're under arrest. Wire fraud, attempted murder, elder abuse, identity theft. Dylan didn't resist, just kept crying. Dad, please, Brittany screamed. This is Frank. Tell them. I said nothing. They led them out in handcuffs. Through the car window, Dylan looked back at me, tears streaming down his face. I didn't wave. The house felt too quiet after they left. Martinez took my statement. Dylan and Brittany would be arraigned Monday. I had gotten justice, but it didn't feel like winning. It just felt empty. 6 months. That's how long it took for justice to run its course. 6 months for winter to pass, for snow to melt, for something like peace to return. I sat on my porch that spring morning with Scout beside me, a 4-month-old border collie I'd adopted 3 months back. In my hand was Dylan's 5th letter. The first 4 sat unopened in my desk. This one felt different. I thought back to January. Dylan had stood before the judge in an orange jumpsuit 20 lb thinner. When the judge said 8 years federal prison, 3 years supervised release. Dylan's shoulders sagged, but he nodded. His eyes found mine. I didn't look away. I didn't smile either. Brittany had fought her charges, claimed innocence. The jury disagreed. 5 years plus $100,000 fine. She'd screamed at me leaving the courtroom. This is your fault. The FBI raided Apex Investment. 2 weeks later, 12 arrests. Dylan's testimony helped. My ranch was locked in an irrevocable trust now. Safe. Scout barked at a butterfly. Life had found rhythm again. Jim came by twice a week. Robert Mitchell handled the legal work. The nightmares mostly stopped. I didn't check under my truck anymore. I joined an elder abuse support group. Gave talks at senior centers about warning signs. 3 families reached out afterward. I'd helped them see the patterns. It felt good to be useful instead of just a victim. My phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Morrison William Hayes from Boise. I found your number through an elder abuse forum. I found something under my car. GPS tracker, missing documents. His daughter asking about power of attorney. I knew this story. William, don't panic. Document everything. Get a lawyer. Check your computer for spyware. Don't confront anyone yet. Why help me? You don't know me. I looked at Scout at my ranch. 6 months ago, I was where you are. You're not crazy. Protect yourself. It's not selfish. It's survival. We talked 10 more minutes. I gave him Mitchell's number. When I hung up, I felt lighter. I opened Dylan's letter. His handwriting shook. Dad, I don't expect forgiveness. Prison is hard, but I need to be here. Therapy helps. I understand what I did. You didn't fail me. I failed myself. You were right to turn me in. It saved my life. I love you, Dylan. I read it twice. Folded. It didn't call him. Maybe someday, not today. Scout nudged my hand. At least you're a loyal boy. The Montana sky stretched endless and blue. I thought about William fighting the same fight. Dylan in prison, hopefully becoming better. Myself at 68 alone, but alive and free. People ask if I regret turning in my son. The answer is no. The alternative was letting him kill me. They say blood is thicker than water. But I learned self-preservation is thicker than blood. That's not selfish. That's survival. I kept Dylan's letter not because I forgave him, but because maybe years from now there might be a chance. Not for what we had that's gone, but for something honest. Or maybe not. Maybe some breaks can't be fixed. Either way, I'll be here on my ranch with my dog, living my life. Because that's what I fought for. Not revenge, not punishment, just the right to keep living on my terms free. Looking back at this true story, I realized the lessons I learned came too late. If you're listening to Burn Revenge's stories like mine, hoping you'll never face betrayal from your own family, let me give you advice. Don't wait like I did. Trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, it probably is. That tracker, those helpful visits, the Wi-Fi setup, my gut knew. I just didn't want to believe my son could betray me. Don't ignore the warning signs. Protect yourself first. People say I was cruel turning in my own blood. But the Bible says in Proverbs, "The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty." God gave us wisdom for survival. Self-preservation isn't selfish when someone's trying to kill you. Document everything, screenshots, photos, dates, times. Evidence saved my life. Without proof, it would have been my word against his. This true story isn't unique. Elder abuse is everywhere now. If you hear Burn Revenge's stories about families exploiting their own for money, believe them. It happens more than people think. Every true story like mine is a warning to others. I'm alive because I chose survival over sentiment. Blood may be thicker than water, but self-preservation is thicker than blood. If these Burn Revenge stories resonated with you or you know someone facing similar struggles, leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Share this story with your family. It could save someone's life. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss true stories that matter. Your support helps these crucial messages reach those who need them most. Thank you for listening. Yet I saw her bent over a trash can in downtown Chicago, picking through garbage for aluminum cans. My ex-wife, the woman I once loved, the woman I thought had abandoned me. When I learned what she'd done, the sacrifice she made in silence, I wept like I'd never wept before. She saved my life by destroying her own. But before I tell you how we got here, drop a comment below. Where are you watching this from? And what time is it where you are right now? But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late July. One of those sweltering Chicago summers where the heat rises off the pavement in waves. I was driving home in my BMW, the air conditioning, on full blast Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, playing softly through the speakers. I just closed a major contract for a new residential complex in Lincoln Park. Life was good, life was comfortable. I loosened my tie at a red light, thinking about dinner. Angela, my current wife, had mentioned something about reservations at that new steakhouse on Michigan Avenue. I wasn't really listening when she told me. I never really listened to Angela anymore, if I'm being honest. The light turned green. I accelerated through the intersection, near the loop, my mind already planning the evening. That's when I saw her. At first, it was just a flash of movement, a figure hunched over a metal trash bin on the corner of State and Madison. Gray hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, sunburned arms, a faded blue shirt that might have been white once. She was pressing an aluminum can flat with her foot, the metallic crunch echoing in my head even over the classical music. Something about the way she moved made me look twice. The curve of her shoulders, the way she bent down familiar. My heart stopped. No, it couldn't be. I slammed on the brakes without thinking. The car behind me blared its horn long and angry. Tires screeched. Someone shouted out their window, but I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. The woman straightened up, startled by the noise. She turned her face toward the street, toward my car. Those eyes. I knew those eyes. Kendall. Oh God. Kendall. My ex-wife. The woman I divorced 5 years ago. The accountant who used to review spreadsheets at our kitchen table with such precision and care. The woman who loved lilacs and old mystery novels and laughed at my terrible jokes. She was here on the street digging through trash. She looked like she'd aged 20 years. Her face was gaunt, weathered, with deep lines around her eyes and mouth. Her clothes hung loose on a frame that had always been slender but now looked breakable. A large black garbage bag full of cans sat at her feet. Our eyes met across the traffic. For one horrible frozen moment, we just stared at each other. I saw recognition dawn on her face. Then something worse. Fear. She grabbed the bag of cans with both hands and turned away, moving fast. Too fast. Trying to run. No. I heard myself say, no, no, no. I jerked the wheel right and pulled into the first parking spot. I saw half on the curb. I didn't care. The BMW's tire scraped against the concrete with a sickening sound. I fumbled with my seatbelt, threw open the door, and ran. My dress shoes slapped against the hot sidewalk. People moved out of my way, their faces curious and annoyed. A businessman in a suit running through downtown Chicago like a madman. I didn't care about any of them. Kendall? I shouted, not caring who heard, not caring about the stares. Kendall, wait. She was already at the corner, moving faster now, the bag of cans bouncing against her leg. She didn't look back. She was trying to escape, trying to disappear before I could reach her. But I was faster. I caught up to her before she could cross the side street. My hand reached out and grabbed her arm. The moment my fingers touched her skin, I felt it. Rough, weathered like leather left too long in the sun. Kendall, please, I said, breathing hard. Just stop. She froze but wouldn't look at me. Her head stayed down, eyes fixed on the cracked sidewalk. The bag of aluminum cans hung from her other hand. Let me go, Edward. Her voice was hoarse, worn down. You don't need to see this. See what a cult I moved to face her? Kendall, what happened 5 years ago? You were an accountant. You had a career. 5 years ago was a lifetime ago. She finally looked up and I saw shame burning in her eyes. Things change. People fall. That's not an answer. My throat was tight. How does someone like you end up living on the streets? Life has its ups and downs. There was no emotion in her voice, just flat acceptance. I pulled out my wallet with shaking hands and took out everything inside. $300. Here, please, let me help you. We can get you a hotel room, some clothes. No. She stepped back like the money was poison. Kendall, don't be stubborn. I don't want your charity, Edward. Her voice was firm now. She stood straighter, and for a moment I saw the woman she used to be, proud, dignified. This isn't charity. You need help. I don't need help. She adjusted the bag on her shoulder. I work. I collect cans. I sell them to the scrapyard on South Side. I buy my food. It's honest work. Honest work. I was crying now. But why? What happened? Did you lose your job? Did something go wrong? She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. I did what I had to do. The words hung in the air. They sounded rehearsed, like she'd told herself this story 1,000 times. What does that mean? I wiped my face with the back of my hand? That doesn't mean anything. Nobody ends up homeless because they did what they had to do. She turned away, preparing to leave again. Please, I said, softer now. Just come with me somewhere with air conditioning. I'll buy you a meal. We can talk. You don't have to tell me everything, just let me understand, please. She stood there for what felt like forever. A bus roared past. People walked around us without a second glance. Finally, she turned her head slightly. One meal, she said quietly. That's all? It wasn't much, but it was a start. The drive to Wicker Park was silent. Kendall sat pressed against the passenger door, hands folded tightly. I'm going to dirty your leather seats, she said quietly. I don't care about the car. I found a small cafe on North Avenue. Inside, I ordered 2 turkey club sandwiches and iced coffee. Kendall used to love iced coffee in the summer. When the food came, she tried to eat slowly, but hunger won. Within seconds, she was devouring the sandwich like she hadn't eaten in days. I couldn't eat. I just watched her chest aching. This woman had once made homemade pasta and sang off Key Totes music. Now she was eating like every bite might be her last. Where are you staying? I asked. She took a long drink. There's a shelter near Grant Park. They serve soup at night. It's temporary. My vision blurred. A shelter? Kendall. What happened? You had a career. I made some choices, bad investments. Took on responsibilities that didn't work out. What responsibilities? The kind that are my problem, not yours. Her voice went flat. We were married for 10 years. We've been divorced for 5. She pushed the plate away. You moved on. You have a new wife. You don't owe me anything. The words stung. Thank you for the meal, she said, standing with her bag of cans. It was the best I've had in weeks, but I need to go. The scrapyard closes at 5. Kendall, wait. I've said too much. She backed toward the door. You shouldn't have stopped. This isn't your burden to carry, Edward. What burden? I stood. What are you talking about? But she was already out the door, moving fast down the sidewalk. I stood there, hands shaking. The barista came over. You okay, man? I wasn't. I paid and sat back down. I couldn't leave yet. Couldn't think straight. Responsibilities burdened bad investments. None of it made sense. Kendall had been meticulous about money. She'd balanced our checkbook to the penny. She'd insisted we save 6 months of emergency funds. She never made risky investments. So what happened? And why did she keep saying it wasn't my burden? What was she protecting me from? I sat there staring at the empty chair across from me, where she'd sat, where she'd eaten like she was starving, where she'd looked at me with shame and fear. Whatever had happened to Kendall wasn't just bad luck, it wasn't just bad choices. Something was very wrong. And I was going to find out what. I left the cafe and drove home in a daze. By the time I pulled into the driveway of our Lincoln Park brownstone, the sun was setting. Inside, Angela was on the couch watching reality TV. She glanced up when I walked in. You're late? I thought we had reservations. Something came up. Something. Work? Yeah. She made a small noise of annoyance but didn't press. We'd been married for 3 years and barely had real conversations anymore. I need to make some calls, I said. Fine, I'll order takeout. She waved dismissively. I went upstairs to my office and closed the door, sat at my desk and stared at my phone. Stephen Martinez. He still worked at the accounting firm where Kendall had been employed. If anyone knew what happened, it would be him. I found his number and called. He answered on the third ring. Edward. Hey, man. Long time. Stephen, I need to ask you something. It's about Kendall. A pause. Your ex-wife? Kendall. Yeah, what happened to her? Why did she leave the firm? Longer pause. When he spoke, his voice was careful. You don't know? My stomach dropped. Know what she didn't leave, Edward? She was fired about 3 or 4 years ago. Fired. Why, the administration received a legal notice from the IRS. Tax issues, federal stuff. They said they couldn't keep someone with that kind of trouble on staff. I felt cold. IRS. That doesn't make sense. Kendall kept every receipt for 5 years. I know none of us believed it either, but the word was, it involved serious money government debt, big stuff. How big, I don't know details. It was hushed up fast, but federal investigation kind of big. They let her go within a week. No severance. I closed my eyes. Federal investigation tax debt. Did she explain they escorted her out quick? I tried calling after, but her number was disconnected. He paused. Look, we all knew Kendall. She was the most careful person there. Whatever happened, something must have gone wrong. Yeah, I said quietly. Something went wrong. After I hung up, I sat in silence. IRS tax debt federal investigation 3 or 4 years ago, right around our divorce maybe, right before. None of it made sense. Kendall had been meticulous about money. She balanced our checkbook to the penny. She insisted we save 6 months of emergency funds. She never took risks. So what happened? What could destroy someone's life so completely, and why did she say it wasn't my burden? I pulled open my desk drawer and rifled through old files, bank statements, tax returns. Everything looked clean. But we'd split everything in the divorce. Assets, debts, everything documented. The divorce papers. I needed to see them. We'd gone through everything carefully, hadn't we? Made sure it was fair. Or had we? I hadn't looked at those papers in 5 years. They were somewhere in this house, probably in the attic, with boxes from my old life, the life I'd had with Kendall. I stood up, my decision made. I needed to find those papers tonight. Because buried in those documents, there might be an answer to why the most careful woman I'd ever known was now sleeping in a shelter and collecting aluminum cans to survive. Something was very wrong, and I was going to find out what. The house was quiet when I climbed the stairs to the attic. Angela had gone to bed without saying goodnight. The attic door creaked open. Hot, stale air hit my face. I pulled the string for the overhead bulb. Dim yellow light flooded the cramped space. Boxes everywhere. Years of accumulated life packed away and forgotten. I started pulling them down, reading labels, kitchen books, winter clothes. 20 minutes in, covered in dust, I found it. A box labeled Legal Edward and Kendall. I sat on the dusty floor and opened it. Inside were folders, tax returns, property deeds, and there at the bottom a blue folder, Divorce Settlement Final. My hands shook as I opened it. The first pages were standard. Division of assets. The apartment we'd sold split 50-50. Car's savings accounts divided equally. I skimmed through page after page. Nothing unusual. Then page 7 buried in dense text a single clause. The party Kendall Morrison voluntarily and fully assumes all fiscal tax and civil responsibilities relating to the period of 2018 through 2020, absolving the party Edward Morrison of any and all liabilities. I stopped breathing, read it again and again, 2018 through 2023. 3 specific years. Why would she insist on such a specific clause about tax responsibilities? We were both salaried employees. Taxes withheld automatically. There was no reason for this clause unless my mind raced. 2018 through 2020. What was happening then? Kendall was working as an accountant for my father's construction company, Franklin Morrison Construction. My blood turned to ice. She'd been managing the books for my father's business for almost 3 years. Then she'd quit suddenly. Said she wanted to try something new, but she hadn't quit. She'd been protecting me. The specific years, the careful legal language absolving me of all liabilities. Kendall had insisted on this clause. She must have. She was taking the fall for something. Something that happened between 2018 and 2020. Something involving taxes, shell companies, tax evasion, federal investigation. My father had done something illegal. Used his company or Kendall's position to commit fraud. And when the IRS investigated, Kendall stepped forward. She took the blame for me to protect me from my own father's crimes. Because if she hadn't, I would have been investigated too. The son of the owner, the civil engineer in the same industry. They would have assumed I was involved. My career destroyed, my reputation ruined. So she sacrificed herself instead. I sat there on the attic floor, divorce papers in my lap, my entire world shifting. My father, the man who taught me about integrity, the man I'd looked up to my entire life. He'd destroyed Kendall's life to save himself, and she'd let him. For me, I looked at my watch. 2:30 in the morning. First thing today, I was calling Dr. Peterson, the tax attorney. I needed a full investigation into Kendall's case, into my father's business, into everything. I needed the truth. All of it. The next morning, I was on the phone before Angela even woke up. Dr. Peterson. This is Edward Morrison. I need your help. Harrison Peterson was the best tax attorney in Chicago. We'd worked together on a few development projects over the years. If anyone could untangle this mess, it was him. Edward, good morning. What can I do for you? I need you to investigate someone's financial history. My ex-wife, Kendall Morrison. She's in trouble with the IRS, and I need to know exactly what happened. There was a pause. This is personal. Very. All right, give me your details and I'll see what I can pull. I gave him everything I had. Her full name, social security number, the years in question. 2018 through 2020. I'll call you when I have something, he said. The next 2 days were torture. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I'd lie awake at night staring at the ceiling, seeing Kendall's face, that rough, sunburned skin, the shame in her eyes. Angela noticed, of course. You're acting strange, she said over breakfast on the second day. Is something wrong at work? Just a difficult project. She didn't press. She never did. On the afternoon of the second day, my phone rang. Dr. Peterson. I answered before the first ring finished. Tell me, Edward. His voice was grave. I have the report. It's worse than we imagined. My stomach dropped. How bad your ex-wife has an executed tax debt of approximately $1.22 million. The room spun. What $1.2 million? The IRS has frozen what little assets she had left. Garnished any wages. She's been blacklisted from most professional positions. How my voice cracked. How does an accountant accumulate that kind of debt? She made $60,000 a year. She didn't accumulate it herself. Dr. Peterson said this debt stems from a shell company. Multiple shell companies, actually. They move significant money around evaded taxes on commercial construction projects. We're talking about fraud on a substantial scale. But Kendall's name doesn't appear anywhere as a partner or owner. But legally, she assumed full responsibility. She signed documents, made statements to federal investigators. I closed my eyes. She confessed yes. According to the record, she confessed to being the sole architect of the scheme. said she acted alone. The investigation was closed. But that's not true. No, Dr. Peterson said quietly. I don't believe it is. Here's the strange part. The original documents, the ones that set up the shell companies, show electronic signatures from a woman's personal accounts. But when you dig deeper, the digital trail becomes confused almost deliberately so. What do you mean someone covered their tracks but not well enough? The trail leads back to family documents, shared accounts, business records from Franklin Morrison Construction. My heart stopped. Edward, I need to ask you something. Is Franklin Morrison your father? I couldn't speak. Edward? Yes, I whispered. He's my father. Dr. Peterson was quiet for a moment. I think your ex-wife threw herself in front of a legal train to save someone very close to you, and I think you know who. I hung up, sat there with the phone in my hand, everything crystallizing into horrible clarity. My father had used Kendall, used her position as his accountant, used her access to create fraudulent companies to evade taxes to steal. And when the IRS came knocking, Kendall had stepped forward and said it was all her to protect me. Because if my father went down, I would have been investigated too. The son, the engineer, the one who benefited from his father's business success. She'd lost everything to keep me safe. From my own father. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and headed for the door. Angela looked up from her magazine. Where are you going? To see my father. I didn't wait for her response. I drove to my father's house in Evanston, like a man possessed. He lived alone now in a house too big for one person. I didn't knock. The front door was unlocked. I walked straight in and found him in his armchair by the window reading the Tribune. He looked up and smiled. Edward, what a nice. I threw the folder under the coffee table. Papers scattered everywhere. His smile died. What did you do between 2018 and 2020 using Kendall's information? His face went white. The newspaper slipped from his hands. Edward, don't lie to me. I know about the shell companies, the $1.2 million, the IRS investigation, everything. His hands started shaking. I needed to solve problems, he said quietly. The business was failing. My name was burned. I couldn't get credit anywhere. So you used your daughter-in-law's identity. You opened fraudulent companies in her name, created a $1.2 million debt. It was supposed to be temporary. His voice cracked. I swear I was going to pay it back. But things moved too fast. The IRS came. Where does Kendall come in? Why is she sleeping in a shelter? Why did she lose everything? He closed his eyes. Tears when he opened them. She found out she was going through the books and saw discrepancies. She confronted me, threatened to report me. So why didn't she? Because I told her what would happen to you. The words hit like a fist. What? The companies were in her name. Yes. But you're my son, a civil engineer on projects I had connections to. If police investigated, they'd look at you too. Assume you knew that you benefited. I felt sick. Your career would be destroyed. Your reputation. You could go to prison, Edward, for crimes you didn't even know about. So she took the blame. She said she wouldn't let anything happen to you. He was crying now. She went to the IRS, met with investigators, told them she was the architect of everything, that she'd acted alone, that you and I were innocent, and you let her. She made me swear not to tell you. Said if you found out, you'd try to take the blame or hate me forever. She'd rather lose you as a husband than watch you lose your freedom. So she sold everything. The apartment, the car, her savings, to pay your debts, to pay fines, lawyers, restitution. But it wasn't enough. The criminal case destroyed her. No firm will hire someone with a fraud conviction. She couldn't find work, couldn't pay rent. I didn't know she'd ended up on the streets, I swear. I stared at him. This man who'd raised me, who taught me about honor and integrity. You taught me to do the right thing no matter the cost, I said. And then you did the most despicable thing imaginable. I was trying to protect you by sacrificing an innocent woman. I was shaking with rage by destroying someone who loved me. You didn't protect me, Dad. You destroyed me. Because now I have to live knowing everything I have. My career, my reputation, my freedom. I only have because she gave up hers. He reached for me. Edward, please. I stepped back. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to sell everything I own if I have to pay back every cent, get her name cleared, and you're going to help me. How? You're going to sign a confession, a legal document admitting your role, admitting she was innocent, and then you're going to stay out of my life until I decide if I can ever forgive you. I turned toward the door. Edward, he called. She did it because she loved you. I stopped but didn't turn around. I know, I said. That's what makes this so much worse. I walked out into the afternoon sun, got in my car, sat there gripping the steering wheel. My father had destroyed Kendall's life to save his own skin, and she let him for me. I looked at the house one more time. The man inside wasn't the father I thought I knew. Maybe he never had been. I started the engine. I had work to do. Kendall was out there somewhere believing she'd done the right thing, believing her sacrifice had meaning, and I was going to prove her right. I was going to give her back everything she'd lost starting today. I drove home feeling split in two. Part of me had died with my father, but another part had woken up. When I walked through the door, Angela was on the couch watching television. She glanced up. Did you sort out your crisis? I looked at her, the designer clothes, the complete absence of empathy. Did you give spare change to your homeless ex-wife? She laughed. That's pathetic, Edward. Someone living on the streets. That's just lack of ambition. If people end up homeless, it's their own fault. Something inside me snapped. Get out of my house. She blinked. What? It's over. We're done. Pack your things. She laughed. Don't be dramatic. Over some homeless woman. I can't live another minute next to someone who mocks others' misfortune. Get out. Her face changed. You're serious? Are you insane? The deed is in my name. I want you gone today. She screamed. Threatened lawyers, but I stood unmoved. An hour later, she was gone. The house was silent. For the first time in years, I could breathe. I waited until evening, then drove to Grant Park. The park at night was dark, scattered figures on benches. I walked through shadows searching. Then I saw her on a stone bench near the fountain, curled under a thin blanket, her bag of cans at her feet. Kendall, I said softly. She jerked awake, eyes wide. Edward, you shouldn't be here. It's not safe. I sat beside her and took her cold hand. I know everything. I went to my father's house. I know what you did. Her face crumpled. He wasn't supposed to tell you. I made him tell me. I hired a lawyer. I found the papers. I know you took the fall for him. For me, tears streamed down her face. You weren't supposed to know. I pulled her into my arms, held her tight. Kendall, I owe you everything. My career, my freedom, my life. You protected me from shame, from prison, from ruin. You carried a weight that wasn't yours out of love. She sobbed, shaking. I had to. I couldn't let them hurt you. But it's over now. I pulled back to look at her. You're not spending another night here. Not on the streets. Not in a shelter. I'm taking you somewhere safe tonight. Edward, I can't. This isn't charity. This is justice. This is restitution. You saved my life. Now let me save yours. She tried to protest, but I could see she was exhausted, broken. Please, I said, let me help you. Let me fix what my father broke. She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. I helped her stand, gathered her blanket and bag. You won't need these anymore. We walked to my car. I opened the door. She hesitated before getting in. Where are we going? A hotel tonight. Tomorrow we start fixing everything. The debt, your record, your career, all of it. That's impossible. Nothing's impossible. Not anymore. You sacrificed everything for me. Now it's my turn. I closed her door and walked around to the driver's side. As I started the engine, I glanced at her. She was crying, but they looked like tears of relief. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry you had to find out this way. Don't apologize. I reached over and squeezed her hand. You have nothing to be sorry for. My father does. I do. But not you. Never you. We drove through the dark Chicago streets, away from the park, away from the shelter, away from the life she'd been forced to live. Tomorrow would be the beginning. Tomorrow I'd call Dr. Peterson, sell my assets, do whatever it took. But tonight I just needed to get her somewhere warm, somewhere safe, somewhere she could sleep without fear. Thank you, she said quietly as we pulled onto Michigan Avenue. No, I said. Thank you for everything you did, for everything you sacrificed. She didn't respond, just leaned her head against the window and closed her eyes. And for the first time in 5 years, I felt like I was finally doing the right thing. The next 3 months became a whirlwind, but a whirlwind with purpose. That first night I took Kendall to a hotel in River North, a clean room with a soft bed. She stood in the doorway staring like she'd forgotten such places existed. Tomorrow we start rebuilding, I told her. The next morning I called Dr. Peterson, settle all of Kendall Morrison's debts, every cent, and file for professional board review. I have a signed confession from my father. Franklin signed the declaration under pressure. His hand shook. He looked 20 years older. I didn't feel sorry for him. I sold the BMW, the downtown condo jewelry. Everything went towards settling Kendall's debt. Dr. Peterson worked miracles. Franklin's confession changed everything. The fraud charges were reviewed, overturned. Kendall's record cleared. Every week I visited her, watched her come back to life. Color returned. The sunburn faded. She gained weight, started smiling. You don't have to keep doing this, she said once. Yes, I do. 3 months passed. On a warm October afternoon, I sat in that same cafe on North Avenue, the same corner table, 2 iced coffees waiting. The door opened. There she was, but not the Kendall from the street. This was someone whole. White blouse, dark slacks, haircut neat, clear, bright eyes. Beautiful. She smiled, the real smile from 10 years ago. Sorry I'm late, I couldn't speak. What? She touched her hair. Do I have something? You look amazing. She blushed. I feel amazing. Guess what the accounting firm called? They reviewed my case, offered me my job back. I start Monday. Tears blurred my vision. That's wonderful. She took my hand. You gave me back my life. I shook my head. You saved mine first. I just returned the favor. We're even. Even she repeated softly. Comfortable silence. Hands clasped. So much lost. So much found. Where do we go from here? I asked. She smiled. Now we have this coffee. Tomorrow may be dinner. Let's take it slow. We have all the time to rebuild. The important thing is the worst is behind us. Yes, the worst is behind us. We finished our coffee, talked about small things, her apartment, my new job, the fall, weather normal, beautiful things. When we left, we walked side by side down North Avenue. Afternoon sun, warm on our faces, leaves turning gold and red. Chicago alive with autumn. We weren't engineer and homeless woman anymore, not ex-spouses making amends. We were 2 people who'd survived, who'd learned hard lessons about sacrifice and love, who'd been broken and were being made whole. As we walked under the afternoon sun, I realized that true worth isn't measured by what's in your pocket, but by what you're willing to sacrifice for those you love. Kendall had given up everything for me in silence, without expectation of reward. She destroyed her own life to save mine. And now, walking beside her, I understood this was just the beginning of a new story. Not one built on wealth or status or the things we'd lost, but one built on respect, gratitude, and a love forged in the fires of sacrifice. The kind of love that endures, the kind worth everything. Looking back now, I realize how blind I was. I lived in comfort while the woman who saved my life suffered in silence. I went about my days working, eating at expensive restaurants, sleeping in my warm bed, never once wondering what happened to Kendall after our divorce. Don't be like me. Don't assume everyone who falls on hard times deserves it. Don't judge the homeless person on the street corner without knowing their story. Because sometimes the person digging through trash cans is a hero. Sometimes they're carrying burdens that should never have been theirs. The lesson I learned the hard way is this. True love isn't about grand gestures or romantic words. It's about sacrifice. It's about standing between someone you love and destruction, even when it costs you everything. Kendall taught me that. She gave up her career, her home, her dignity, all without asking for thanks or recognition. If I could go back, I'd pay more attention. I'd ask more questions. I'd notice when someone I loved suddenly disappeared from my life without explanation. But I can't go back. None of us can. All we can do is move forward with open eyes and open hearts. Burn revenge stories like this one remind us that every person has a history we don't see. My grandfather used to say that God puts people in our path for a reason. Sometimes to help us, sometimes for us to help them. This true story proved him right. Today, Kendall and I are rebuilding slowly, carefully. We're learning to trust again. And every day I'm grateful for the second chance we've been given. Because Burn Revenge's stories about redemption aren't just tales from the past. They're happening right now all around us. This true story is mine. But maybe you have one too. What's your true story of sacrifice or redemption? Have you ever discovered someone's hidden struggle too late? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this Burn Revenge touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell so you never miss these real stories about love loss and second chances that remind us what truly matters in